media and information literate citizens, thinking critically, clicking wisely. What a week it has been, and we have all you participants and partners and speakers, experts and practitioners to thank for a hugely successful week. UNESCO is so grateful. This resource is the second edition of the UNESCO Media and Information Literacy Curriculum for Educators and Learners. The event was opened last week, Friday, for those who have been following us, on the 23rd of April, by our UNESCO Director General or Deputy Director General, the Prime Minister of Serbia, the Vice President of the European Commission, the Deputy Chairperson of the African Union, among other officials, which indicate the high level of international attention and importance that is being played and showed to media and information literacy. Many of you might have been following the subsequent sessions over the past 4 or 5 days, started on Tuesday and also earlier today. The session addressed media and information literacy and disinformation, looking at issues around mail policies and the futures of mail. And the session that just ended addressed issues around media and information literacy for dialogue and anti-hate speech. We encourage you to see the videos for all these sessions, all right, online, and to connect and to share these videos with your network. They're available on the UNESCO media channels, social media channels, as well as the UNESCO MilClick social media channel. Today, we will continue this dialogue, and in some sense, we will be still continuing to look at the futures of media and information literacy by zooming in on what UNESCO calls media and information literacy by design. How can media, artificial intelligence, social media platforms, and libraries help? So I repeat the title for today, Media and Information Literacy by Design. How can media, digital communication platforms, artificial intelligence, and libraries help? Today also marks the start of the celebration of World Press Freedom Day 2020 to 2021, under the theme, Information as a Public Good. Media and information literacy is one of the sub-themes of World Press Freedom Day 2021. The two other sub-themes being media viability and digital communications platform transparency. This year, 2021, also marks the 30 years since the Windhoek Declaration. The Windhoek Declaration is the outcome of a 1991 conference in Namibia, Windhoek, Namibia, where World Press Freedom Day found its origin. UNESCO invites you to see the website for World Press Freedom Day, again, to share that with your network and to join the sessions and the dialogue that will continue from today onwards into next week. Coming back to the theme for today, media and information literacy by design. The obvious question is, what do we mean by design? Now, when we consider media and information literacy as a means by which to stimulate people's critical thinking and about content, we would perhaps agree that there is power in words. There is power in words. Therefore, thinking critically about what is written or said empowers people all around the globe and at all levels of society. But media and information literacy is also about enabling people's discernment about how they interact with various content providers, whether it's library, media, digital communication platforms, archives, museums, and so on. Content providers are part of the design element of the content mix, which includes information. And thus, content providers are also a part of the media and information literacy by design. As there is power in words, there is also power in design. As there is power in words, there is also power in design. This final session in the series will draw on the ones before. It will also draw on World Press Freedom Day sub-themes by considering how mail can enable media viability and stimulate internet companies' transparency. The session will investigate the potential role of design in promoting people towards media and information literacy learning. It will examine, for example, how digital communication companies, including social media, media organization, libraries, can design meal learning and access to information effectively and efficiently in everyday life, including low resource contexts, not only online and through technologies. The session will explore such innovative, interdisciplinary, multi-stakeholder, and transparent approaches in designing and expanding meal learning. And importantly, how can we do this without compromising people's rights to choose and their autonomy in general? How can we do this meal learning by design while respecting freedom of expression, while respecting people's rights to choose and their autonomy in general? Here with us today to unpack all this and to make media and information literacy by design more clearly understood by the public are 7 dynamic experts, leaders and opinion leaders and shapers in their different fields. And they're important part of the stakeholder groups of media and information literacy. First, we have with us Anna Merkovic. Anna Merkovic is the CEO and co-founder of the Digital Communications Institute. Anna, do you want to say a quick hello to our audience and friends who are connected with us on social media?
Hello, it's a great privilege to be here with you. Hello.
Thank you, Anna. We also have with us Lisa Hinchcliffe, I want to get that correctly. Lisa Hinchcliffe, professor and coordinator for information literacy services and instruction at the University of Illinois. Lisa, please say hello to our friends connected.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you, Alton and the organizers for the work to put this on and for inviting me to participate.
Also with us, Ibrahim Kushu, all right? He's a professor and founding director of nextminds.com, like that, Next Minds. Media and information literacy is about next minds, as it's also about the next normal and the new normal that we will face after the COVID-19. Ibrahim, please, you want to give a quick wave to our friends. Are you there, Ibrahim? I think you're muted.
Hi, everybody. Hello. I am really very happy to be part of this distinguished speakers, and thank you for giving this opportunity to speak about this significant topic.
Thank you. UNESCO is grateful. We also have with us Yesus Law. Yesus is a professor at the University of Veracruzana, and he's also the co-chair of the International Steering Committee for the UNESCO Mail Alliance. Yesus, a word, please.
Hello, Alton. Hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. And I would say happy Freedom of Press Day. I think it's an important human right. And I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Yesus. And last but not least, of course, we have Olia Boyar. She's the head of radio at the Asia Broadcasting Union. Olia.
Hello, and thank you very much. It's great to be among such a distinguished panel and friends. I look forward to the discourse.
Then coming to the penultimate, we have 2 more, big panel, but we will have an interactive session. Natalie Laborde. She's the manager at the European Broadcasting Union Academy. Natalie.
Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be among friends and with all of you. And thanks for this fantastic, Alton, fantastic initiative and great panel today. So I'm looking forward to our discussion. Thank you so much, Natalie. And last but by no means least, this is the correct time to say it, is Mr. Renan Castillo, or Costello. He's the Senior Public Policy Manager of Twitter. We're really happy to have you, Renan. Please give us a wave.
Good to see you again, Alton. Thanks for having us. And hello, everyone from Dublin.
Okay. Well, we're going to have a very interactive dialogue. It's supposed to be a 1-hour session. We're already close to 10 minutes into the dialogue. We encourage you, our listeners, our friends, partners, part of the MIL community and family, to please share your observations in the chat, because we'll be highlighting some of your observations and comments in the outcomes of this week launching event. Voila, without further delay, we're going to get started. We hope to have 3 rounds of interactive exchange and questions to our panelists. We're going to start with Professor Ibrahim Kushu. Professor, you have written a book about artificial intelligence and media and information literacy. In fact, it was recently published, and you did that jointly with the UNESCO International Institute for Technology in Moscow, Russia. We're happy to partner with you from Next Minds. Could you open this dialogue and discussion by telling us what is the significance and implications of artificial intelligence for media and information literacy?
Thank you, Alton, for introducing the book. Actually, I was going to introduce it myself. All the discussions that I'm going to be proposing here briefly are based on this new book that we did in cooperation with the IIET in Moscow. And my colleagues has done a really great job. And I have some contribution, and also I am the editor of the book. And the book is available actually for download, free download, if anyone is interested in the links. I will share the link. I think I can't share it now, but I will share the link with anyone who is interested. Now, basically, in order to understand significance of artificial intelligence for MIL, we have to understand what are 3 important aspects of artificial intelligence. One is data use, and the other one is how artificial intelligence our artificial intelligence systems work to gather data from different sources in different formats and in different ways in a precise and directed manner. And thirdly, how artificial intelligence can disseminate the information or data or any other content to the right person in the right manner in a precise and personalized way. Now, about data, now, artificial intelligence tools has not really changed drastically since the 70s. What has happened was the technology supporting our AI, such as the processors, the speed of the processors, the bandwidth, and our ability to be able to collect, store, and work on the big data has improved. When we were doing our PhD in AI in the 90s, if we did work with like hundreds rows of data, we would be so happy. But now we can work on millions of data, and this data is pictures. So the AI tools and techniques are not necessarily so intelligent and so complicated and so wonderful, but our ability to work on the data is so improved. So that has a lot of implications for the MIL. So if you're going to use AI to empower the individuals or societies, you will need a large set of data, which is helping your purpose. Now, the other thing about AI is you can train systems, you can make AI system to learn how and where and from which sources and which format you will collect data from various places in a high and speed way. And once you collect this data, you will work on this data and then create new information out of this data. And then you can, again, like a gentle tailor, like a gentle tailor, design what kind of content you will be disseminating and distributing to the audience. Now, what does this mean? This means if you, for example, if you want to create a conspiracy about the COVID vaccinations or vaccines, it is much, much easier if you use some AI techniques, because you can find out who would be your target audience and what kind of content you will send to this group of target audience as opposed to other group of audience, and what will be your precise content according to perhaps per individual basis. So if you want to create, if you want to convince people to go for a vaccination, you can do the same. So AI can help you in both ways. If you want to use it for good purposes, you will use AI to help you with your meal efforts very significantly. And if it is in the bad hands, it can be a dangerous tool. So I'll just introduce these issues for the moment as a significance of AI in meal, and we can discuss further issues later.
No, thank you so much for that, Ibrahim, and I do encourage, yes, thank you for keeping it short, because we will come back to you 2 more times. We want to rush through this first segment to make up for some time, but thank you for laying that framework so that our listeners can understand more clearly the powers of AI, how it has grown, and what are the implications for meal and to drive meal content online. We want to move rapidly to Miss Lisa Hinchliffe. All right, Lisa Hinchliffe, and we, again, a librarian, a library experts, and we are really happy to have this diverse groups of experts from different fields, both from informational library science, from technology, and from media, and of course from different international regional organizations and content providers. Really happy to have this diverse group. Lisa, could you speak to us a little bit, about, what are some examples, from the library perspectives? What are some examples of how media and information literacy education programs can help people to become more aware of what this academician, Safia Nobel, she calls it algorithms of oppression, quite a powerful term, especially as we're in the context of World Press Freedom Day, algorithms of oppression. Not sure what it means. I think you hope that you will clarify to us, I see where it has to do with AI, how AI learns and reinforces bias. Could you speak to us a little bit about some examples that you're familiar with in this context?
Sure. Thank you, Alton. I'm going to bring forward another concept here of algorithmic literacy, which I think is a really important information literacy in our sort of panoply of literacies that we consider. And that's really the importance that through our educational programs, individuals become aware of how algorithms shape our information environments. And they shape it often in ways that we do not even realize that they are shaping it. And Safia Nobel's work did an immense amount of research and documentation showing that in particular Google, but other search engines are representing and representing the world to us in biased, particularly racist ways. And sexist, etc. And so taking all of, if you will, the worst of our sort of ways we interact with each other, encoding them into algorithmic rules that then present the world to us as a racist, sexist, etc. place, and just in this iterative cycle of reinforcing these problematic structures. And so it's really incumbent upon us as information literacy educators, librarians working with this, to help peel back, if you will, to reveal the way that algorithms work and to ask questions about how power influences those decisions that are made and how these biases come into play. So as one example, on my own institution this year, I'm actually leading one of our Humanities Research Institute's research clusters on artificial intelligence and society. And as one spoke of our activities, we have been doing an AI, what we are calling the AI infodemic, looking at how these algorithmic rules are shaping our information environments. And it's really easy to poke at the internet and Google, but we're even this week looking at how even library subscription databases, scholarly journals are impacted and, if you will, polluted by the ways that information is structured by these algorithms. So it's a very important area that so many people are doing work on. This summer, we're actually going to have a speaker series, which is inviting people who are in the midst of doing their PhD. So our early career researchers who are often doing the cutting edge research on this. And so we'll be hosting an online speaker series at my institution to bring forward this really cutting edge research on this algorithmic literacy and the way it is feeding our AI infodemic.
Thank you so much for that, Lisa. Again, you know, this importance of algorithmic literacy as an important notion of literacy that comes into the media and information literacy ecology, as we call it, trying to you know, amalgamate many different types of literacies that are quite related. So thank you so much for that. Representation, algorithmic representation and how the media and digital communication platform represent the world. But it's not just the media and the digital communication platform, but it's us people who are behind this platform, driving and coding, represent the world is an important part of media and information literacy. And you can see more about that in the Media and Information Literacy curriculum that we mentioned earlier online. Voila, we move very rapidly to get a media perspective on this dialogue a little bit more. We have two persons here with us from the media, Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union and European Broadcasting Union. We're going to go with first with Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union, Ms. Olia Boar, head of radio. Olia, could you please, you know, give us the perspective on, you work a lot with public service media in the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union. How can public service media served by the ABU, aware of the theory and practice of media and information literacy? How are they aware of the knowledge? What knowledge do they have of AI and new technologies to meet and to work and engage with their audiences? Do they see media and information literacy as an important part of their bottom line as they remain on the front line of information? Could you speak to us a little bit about that, how your certain public service providers engage with their viewers and listeners in the context of media and information literacy?
Thank you, Alton. And yes, it's important to speak from the media component of the media and literacy side of things. So the Asia Pacific region is home to 2/3 of the world's population. So it's extremely diverse in every way possible, especially when it comes to access to technology or the digital divide. The challenges of applying and aligning technologies are huge. Public service broadcasters are experiencing expanding remits. They are supposed to be ubiquitous on all platforms. They are in social media everywhere, but they have shrinking resources. There's also an age-old challenge of frequent disparity between the two of the pillars of public service broadcasting: inform versus entertain. Audiences often don't prefer content that educates them or tries to change their biases, no matter where they're from. Public service media can't be everything to everyone, so we must constantly choose not only what to broadcast, but what to leave out. And in some countries, PSM are not independent of government, so we must tread sometimes uneven paths to serve citizens. So therefore, the key issue for all broadcasters right now, wherever we happen to be, is trust, gaining and maintaining the trust of their audiences. Now, of course, successful public service media organizations in the Asia Pacific have carved out a place for themselves on the new platforms and have successfully chased new audiences with at least some of their programming. This means that there is a presence for truth and accurate news and information to counterbalance misinformation and to educate audiences, to check facts and compare viewpoints. I mean, the ABU works with all of their members across the board to do this, but I have to keep saying that the central issue for all of us right now is trust. And that is to maintain the trust in the media in general against the backdrop of everything that's been going on, topped off by the pandemic over the last few years, and to actually keep the trust in their public service media. I mean, the Reuters Institute has just released a report saying that although most people spend most of their time on social media, they don't trust social media, but they still trust their public service broadcasters, but they don't spend a lot of time engaging with them. So that's the dichotomy that we're working against. So in any educational kind of resources that we produce, or in any education that we ourselves impart, we must balance those two and try to get on the equation, on the right side of the equation in terms of how to engage people and how to keep them with us, how to trust, how to gain trust of the citizens and the audience. And then, of course, we can roll out a lot of this information. And MIL is one of the huge pillars of everything that we do in the Asia Pacific region.
Okay, thank you so much, Alia, for those introductory statement. That media perspective is very important. We want to take a beeline to our partner, Twitter, Renan Castillo, the senior policy advisor of Twitter. Twitter is a good partner of UNESCO, who has really committed to promoting media and information literacy and making meaningful attempts to support those type of programs. We are thankful to have partnered with Twitter to revamp and to revise the Twitter guide, teaching and learning with Twitter. Not quite often that we will get a big platform, opening up and say, tell us what we should be doing and how we should be doing it right. We're hoping to hear from you. We're not just going to listen, but we're going to take your content and we want to use it and we're going to promote that. So grateful to have you, Renan. Please, the first question to you, can you tell us in this same light of the discussions that have ensued, how is Twitter using AI to surface credible and authoritative content and information, which is one of the key remit of media and information literacy, information verification?
Thank you, and thanks for the kind words about the partnership. It's been great working with you and the team for, it must be 3-4 years now, at least. But to your question, this question is top of mind as well, because I was at an event this morning. It was more of an Irish context, but it was specifically about COVID-19, the vaccine rollout nationally and internationally, and the role that media and social media has played in either encouraging or discouraging people from going to get their vaccine, and the faith in vaccine or lack of faith in vaccine efficacy. So this session is almost feels directly related to that. Through Twitter's efforts in the AI space, the machine learning space, as Ibrahim said, a lot of this work is dependent on pattern identification, right? On analyzing data sets and having a clearer view of credible actors and good faith actors on the platform whose content should be upranked, should be amplified, because they are a credible news organization, a credible NGO, a credible public health institute, etc. So Twitter has deliberately, for example, let's just situate this in the context of the last 18 months or so. Twitter has deliberately sought to amplify voices that might have credible information for around the COVID-19 pandemic. We have done that by, for example, recently, say for example, this is World Health Immunization Week. And in several countries across the world, we launched a prompt at the top of people's timeline. So if you logged into the Twitter app, at the top of your timeline, you saw a box that had a peace sign in it, and it said it was World Immunization Week, and that you should go to the CDC in the United States, the NHS in the UK, and the HSE it's called here in Ireland, for credible information about the vaccine. And so we are, I guess, in that sense, engaging in what behavioral economists would call nudges, right? We're building it into the product to try to amplify credible and reliable information over actors who may be trying to spread disinformation. And the last thing I would say around that about disinformation is that over the last 12 months, we have expanded our harmful, misleading information policy to include harmful misinformation around COVID-19 and indeed harmful misinformation with respect to the COVID-19 vaccines. And through machine learning, we have been able to challenge and in a lot of cases suspend around 12 million accounts globally who were trying to manipulate the conversation on Twitter to get these topics trending around anti-vax, around, you know, COVID is a hoax and things like that. So that work is very, very much reliant on machine learning and basically pattern identification.
Thank you so much for that, Renan. Important point there. Some nudges, you know, this is the media and information literacy by design, and how we can nudge people towards media and information literacy learning. We want to get the sort of a national perspective, you know, from one of our chairs, one of the UNESCO chairs in Serbia, Anna Merkovic. We're really thankful to Serbia UNESCO, who has been a real champion throughout the last 18 months that has resulted in this new resource, the second edition of the Media and Information Literacy Curriculum. You know, many international experts events and regional consultations and real commitment, and we're thankful for that. Anna, could you give us a little bit of your perspective? The Republic of Serbia has developed a national AI policy and strategy, I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's for the period 2020 to 2025, you know, they developed some sort of AI policy and strategy. What is your perspective? Could you tell us a little bit about that AI policy and strategy? And then, importantly, what is your perspective on governments considering the integration of media and information literacy learning, media and information literacy by design, that is, in their AI policies and strategies?
Thank you. Yes, you're completely right. Serbia adopted IA strategy as well as media strategy for the same period, 2020 to 2025. And it's within the media strategy and its action plan, the whole chapter and set of measures and actions are devoted to improvement of media literacy. It forces, for example, continuation of empowering of media and the digital competencies of journalists and media professionals, as well as public administration. I think this is really important because I am deeply in the topic and I know how important it is to empower all the people, because, you know, media literacy and digital media literacy, it's considering all of us who are participating the media space these days, and it's everywhere. We are all on multi-screen and we are sharing and notice and we are seeing everything that is going on around us. So it also predicts development and of multi-sector program for further development of media and information literacy and media environment and coordination of different stakeholders. And this is really important to have that synergy of multi-stakeholder approach. And we had that several times actually in Serbia. Last December, we have one debate on artificial intelligence and freedom of expression organized by our Ministry of Culture and Information, but also OSCE mission to Serbia, Balkan Investigative Reporting Network, the Independent Association of Journalists of Serbia, Online Media Association, etc. So it is really important to be all together in this topic. And I also have to mention that almost a year and a half ago, I was participating in one amazing workshop led by Ibrahim, and it was about information and media considering artificial intelligence. And it was a great pleasure to be participant and to be one who is educated and one which awareness is raised up. So we learned a lot of things, and I think that the workshop was an inspiration for publication, artificial intelligence, media and information literacy, human rights and freedom of expression, but I hope Ibrahim will say much more about it. So yes, we are working a lot. I am a part of a lot of projects considering digital media literacy and how to use artificial intelligence in order to empowering all people, all citizens, and to be much more in this topic, because that is the only way to think critically.
Thank you so much, Anna. The multi-stakeholder approach, really important. Crossing of policies, I heard from you, and we need that crossing and intersection of policies, not just, one group or one ministry working, but all these different areas, media policies, access to information policies, technology policies, merging with mill policies. Very important point. Thank you for that. We're moving rapidly along. Again, to get another side of the Atlantic, Natalie, from the European Broadcasting Union, Natalie Laborde, to get another perspective, again, also from the media. The European Broadcasting Union, I believe, is perhaps the second largest, if I'm maybe correct, maybe African broadcasters is larger broadcasting union in the world, but really happy to have you, Natalie. Could you share with us, again, the perspective of EBU on the topic? And my first question to you is, what could journalism institutions do to, by design, promote media and information literacy learning in people's normal interaction with the content of these these organizations, sorry. So what could journalism institutions do by design to promote media learning as people interact with the content of these different journalism institutions?
Mm-hmm. Alton, that's a very, very interesting topic. I'm going to propose something is really we have to change paradigm. And I'm going to do a metaphor because I love metaphors. I don't know if you know this worldwide movement called slow food. And slow food was born in Italy. And the idea was really to enhance the taste, the origin of the food, and the producers. And what we have to do is what we have to enhance what I call slow journalism. And what is slow journalism? We have been working a lot in this, and it's really taking a lot of importance. And what is slow journalism? And like slow food, it is respect of words, respect of images. Where do the news come from? What is the richness of the views and the progression of the story? So it is something I can tell you that is really, really important, and that can really attract what we call the Gen Z, the new generation of audiences, which are crucial because they get away from our news. And if we want them, the young people, to be interested in what news is, we have to really respect this. So we have to, we have to eat in another way. It's not enough to speak about climate change and whatever, but what do we do concretely? So let's start by eating properly. So in the news, exactly the same. So let's try to do news in a new way, which is slow journalism.
Thank you. So well said. Wow, that was powerful. Love that. Slow food. Let's eat properly, and that's what we want through media and information literacy. Let's eat healthy information. So thank you for that. Origin, meaning, ethics, and perhaps probably could add a fourth one, destiny. What audience and with what purpose. Origin, meaning, ethics, destiny. Thank you so much for that. Let's rush to Yesus Law, our good partner, Yesus Law. to close this first round. Jesus, you are one of the co-chairs of the International Steering Committee for UNESCO Middle Lands and also professor. The first question, what are the main AI actions that libraries and educational institutions can take to support media and information literate citizens in democracy? I want to just repeat that. What are the main actions that libraries and educational institutions, from your perspective, can take to support media and information literate citizens in a democratic society?
Well, Alton, this is a complex question, but there is an author, well, a group of authors head by Helvin, is the last name. I tried to write it down on the chat, but it's close. So yeah, I can send it later. Well, I think universities or any educational institution, as well as libraries, should take the principles that this researcher proposes in order to have a healthy democratic society. And I will not go through the 10 principles that he mentions, but I will just give you the most important ones. One is to promote information self-determination. It's easy to say, obviously, but media and information literacy has to be transformed, enhanced, in order to foster information self-determination of our citizens. The second one that I found quite important for MIL objectives is information pollution reduction, to provide training to citizens to reduce information pollution. The other one that is quite important is to teach, to help citizens to use information filters. This is quite important because we are being bombarded with information, data, media, and so on. And we need to learn how to filter information. The other one is to promote collective intelligence. In other words, to build, a community knowledge. And the last one that it fits quite well is to be a responsible citizen, to have a responsible citizen behavior. These principles are just 6. There are 10 of them that you can read in this chapter, are very good because these principles can guide our media and information literacy action, as well as any institution that is aiming to have independent thinking citizens. And I would recommend something else. Lisa mentioned algorithmic literacy. It's quite important. We need to learn how all these engines, platforms, shape their information and shape our way of thinking. And Ibrahim mentioned that how data is important. The key control of what you call, information by design or artificial intelligence use is based on data. We need to provide data literacy, data training to students, to citizens. Once we lose the power of our privacy, our data, we are under control of any search engine, any government. Governments, for example, are moving towards having more control of our data. And this is something that we need to embrace in information literacy, either in libraries or at an educational institution at large.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Law. Thank you so much, Jesus, for that. Losing our privacy, losing control. Maybe Ibrahim could respond to you a little bit on a couple of those points that you highlighted from both Ibrahim and Lisa. Ibrahim, could we come back to you? Could you share with us what, in your perspective, are one or two of the latest AI-relevant technology or applications that could help or hinder our media and information literacy efforts?
It's probably muted.
Sorry. I was again muted. First, let me mention about the meeting that we had in Belgrade. This meeting, we did a training of the government professionals on media and artificial intelligence, media and information literacy, freedom of expression, and the human rights. This was important for two reasons, at least. One of them is, for the first time, I saw a government or body, the ministry, and also government professionals being ahead of other governments to step into this field. This was very, very impressive for me. And also an example for the other governments. And this is important for capacity building of the government professionals and the journalists and other participants. We were more than 40 people there, for key instrumental people for the government, for the country. And secondly, this is important for the government as a regulator, because regulation of our field, the new emerging technologies, when it is especially related to the human rights, freedom of expression, and privacy, as you said, is so difficult because regulators have two basic problems. One, our field changes so fast and it's technologically very complex. So regulators do not really have the resources to follow and to get into all these expertise. And by nature, regulators are slow. So I was very much impressed and to see the Serbian government taking a lead on this and being an example to the other countries. Now, in terms of understanding artificial intelligence, we have to understand
Ibrahim, please, if you could wrap up in 30, 45 seconds, because we need to advance this round. So please, let's keep it short. Yes.
Okay, very briefly. Artificial intelligence is an abstraction of the rules from a large data set. They are not algorithmic systems. So looking at AI systems as an algorithm is misleading, because algorithm means step-by-step solution to a problem. So we don't really solve problems with AI through algorithms. We abstract the rules containing in the data to a structure, artificial neural network or genetic algorithms or something like that, a model of AI. So therefore, so it is more than algorithms, so more critical in meal education and meal efforts that we have to really take into consideration. Finally, I'll just give one word about, for example, you have a deep fake, and then you want to know, you want to let the larger audience about how critical this video is, and it is a fake. Now we can use all these traditional methods, and we can do, social media and other things, but AI and biotechnology is improving in such a way that now we can transfer information of a brain from a brain of a person to another person. Now this sounds like a fiction, but the human experiments are now confirmed. This is an area of implementation of biotechnology and artificial intelligence called brain interfaces, like Elon Musk using those electrodes to transfer information directly to a machine. Now we have brain-to-brain connections. Now, what does this mean? If you educate one, can you believe how many people can you educate? It's almost limitless. Whoever is connected to your system. So what does this mean for meal education? Please think about it. So I have to speak very briefly, but I want to mention that there are huge potential to use these technologies for good, and also that may really hinder our efforts in the media and information.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim. Media and information literacy, peer education through AI. We heard you said. We want to come back to Natalie Laborde from the European Broadcasting Union. Correct me if I'm wrong, Natalie, I believe that EBU works both with private and public sector media. One famous expert, I don't remember the name of the person now, observed that, and I quote, transparency is the new objectivity for journalism. Transparency is the new objectivity for journalism. And so coming back to your point earlier, Natalie, about the way media should operate in preparing their content, how they should look at origin, meaning, ethics, and I added destiny and purpose to what you said. Could you speak to us a little bit as to, how could media organizations like those who are members of the European Broadcasting Union inspire development towards enriching content and programming so that people can actually come to understand the origins and the shape of news? How could this happen? What can be done? What needs to be done?
Thanks a lot. Very interesting, as always, Alton, for the questions. I think transparency is a public service value. It's one of the 6 values of the EBU. So transparency, absolutely yes. And it's also transparency and what was said before by Olia, trust and accountability. So when we have said this, so how do we put these words into action? How do we walk the talk in a way? I think the way we are using multi-platform, so we don't have anymore only TV, radio. We have all the social platforms, which are really extremely important. So I would say the way of making it is really, again, by showing what I said earlier, the respect to our audiences. We are really more and more not only demanding, but they want to understand. And the one of the words we say for the young generation is the authenticity. What we have to do has to be authentic. So the way we present our program on the web, for example, on the digital platforms, the design, you were mentioning design, Alton, in your questions, the design of the content is crucial. And by using design, and as you know, by design, it's the success of the best brands. Design has to be very important. So by design, you show if it is clear, if it's transparent, if it is well put off, if it is well prepared. And even if you use the Twitter, the Reels, the Twitch, all the things of the new games platform, whatever, if you are very clear, very articulate, if there is a lot of production values behind this, then you have a lot of success, and then you understand, and your audience understands very well. So I think there are ways, but I would say we have to go back to the fundamentals of what is good journalism. Like slow food, what is good journalism? It has to have taste. It has to know where it comes from. You have to have real people. So we have to go back to, I would say, backwards in a way. Forget the industrialization of news. Let's go back to more authentic news. And it takes more time, but thanks to AI, and I agree with my colleagues here in the panel, AI can help in certain automatization of the works. So we can help to create maybe more time and more opportunities to create better news.
Thank you so much for that, Natalie. Again, on slow foods, thank you for that. We want to move to Professor Lisa Hinchcliffe again. Professor, you spoke about the library context, algorithmic literacy as a part of the mill ecology. I wanted for you to speak a little bit about partnerships between journalists and librarians. Sometimes we can work in our silos, and today we're in a converged world, where, well, quite frankly, it's not just converging, but sometimes colliding, in the mashup of information, media, and digital ecology. So could you speak to us a little bit, very rapidly, Professor Hinchcliffe, on how libraries and journalists could partner in this important work to promote media and information literacy by design?
Yes, I'm really thrilled to have that question. Actually, at the Gap Mill, when we were calling it Gap Mill conference during Mill Week 2018, Laura Saunders at Simmons University and I presented the research that we had done with a federal grant here in the United States under the title Know News, as in know your news, like be smart about news, which actually specifically inquired into how librarians and journalists could forge partnerships around the issues of mis and disinformation. And so I'll just point to our white paper, which is freely available as a result of that grant project. And I'm sure the the organizers can send out a link later if I provide it, so I'll do that. But we had about 60 people come together and conceptualize different approaches, some of which we're pairing together to maybe even help our communities be citizen journalists and sort of move even our learners into the role of the journalist using good information resources partnered through a library. Looking at how libraries could better support journalists with quality information sources that they could rely on in their reporting. And of course, also looking at libraries as an outlet for quality news sources. And so, I mean, it's a white paper, there's like 30 pages in there, so I can't go into depth right now given our time limitations. But I think this is a really important thing. And Laura and I continue our work on collaboration and what it takes to do robust collaboration. So I'd welcome, not surprisingly, collaborators on this look at collaboration.
Thank you so much for that. Collaboration, you know, between libraries and journalists, between librarians and libraries and media organizations. There's some good examples here in France with the Center, CLEMI, the Center for Media and Information Literacy here in France, you know, work between media libraries and schools. Also some good example in Sweden through the Swedish Media Council, working with some, if I recall well, some 40,000 libraries across Sweden, and a lot happening for MIL through that channel. On that note, we want to bring in the technological side, because it's not just partnerships with media and libraries, but also with digital communication. So we want to go back to Ronan Castello, our partner, senior media, senior policy manager in Twitter. Ronan, could you speak to us a little bit on that count of collaboration and partnerships and linking up different initiatives across discipline and across stakeholder groups? How does social media promote media and information literacy through product design? What sort of product can social media develop to push MIL by design?
Yeah, so I think this actually goes to something that Olya said about trust. I think Twitter is definitely concerned about the trust that users feel that they can attach to information they see on the platform. Now that goes against the perception that companies like Twitter or platforms like Twitter and other ones are purely optimizing for engagement regardless of the consequences. I don't believe that's true, because that would be a bad long-term play for a company like Twitter, because ultimately users would tire of that, they would see what was happening, they wouldn't trust what they saw on the platform anymore, and they would just move away to a different platform. And so a lot of what we're doing from the point of view of partnerships and also product design is actually amplifying the content coming from, the material coming from what you call like legacy news organizations, be it credible TV stations, credible newspapers globally. I mentioned public health agencies, etc. You know, be it through the verification of accounts or through the prominent placement of the material that they have produced, the journalism they have produced in trending topics, in our curation of tweets and things like that. For example, I mentioned this previously in a conversation with you, Alton. We have a prompt now on the platform where if you try to retweet someone else's tweet that contains a link to an article, but you haven't read the article, we will now say, you haven't opened that link, you can't possibly know what's in it. Do you want to take a moment to read it before you share it? It kind of goes to the slow journalism point that Natalie was making there. It's like, let's not like kind of judge the success of a tweet by how many thousands of times it's been retweeted in 10 minutes. Just like slow down, read it first, and then consider sharing it. So it's kind of like a product development that has directly pushed it back against the notion that the only successful content is the clickbait content, and the only measure of its value is how many times it's been shared. So in that way, I think we're trying to elevate content from news organizations. And that's not even to mention, because I know we're pushed on time, but that's not even to get into the work we're doing around online safety or media literacy with organizations like UNESCO, and I think the key thing there is something you said, Alton, is like knowing what you're good at and what you're not so good at, or what you don't know about. When we talk to you about media and information literacy, I'm not a media and information literacy expert, so I'm not going to pretend to be. And so we were very deferential to you and the content that you wanted to include in that partnership.
Thank you so much for that. I know you have a lot more to say. We're a little bit strained for time, but thank you so much for that. Slow down and read, slow down, stop scrolling so rapidly, slow a little bit and read. I like to talk affectionately about reading the forgotten pearl of great price, and media and information literacy by design can change that. We want to go back to Anna Merkovic. Anna, you are, again, CEO and founder of the Digital Communication Institute in Serbia. Could you share with us a little bit some examples of from your organization's work on AI? What is your organization doing in terms of work about the AI and how AI can empower citizens to think critically about information?
My institute is a partner of Irish Institute, the Digital Marketing Institute from Dublin, and we are organizing their programs for Balkanese country for ex-Yugoslavia, actually, territory. And through this institution, I'm dealing with empowering businesses in thinking critically and how to use digital media properly in order to empower their businesses. But also as a psychologist dealing with digital communication, I'm working a lot for UNICEF as a consultant for digital violence, trying to make this prevention part of problem of cyberbullying, sexting, grooming, sextortion, pornography. Through Ministry of Culture and Information, I'm doing as a consultant, as an expert on this handbook for media literacy in pre-university education. So there are a lot of things I'm doing at the moment, but the main thing is that we have to make people aware of media literacy and why it is important to participate smartly and to think critically. And after education and after raising awareness, we have chance to engage them, to think more deeply about this topic and to consider this topic as relevant for their life and for participating in this huge media space. So a lot of really interesting projects are going on, and I'm really feel really happy to be part of all these projects. And I hope that everything is just move on much more and faster.
Thank you so much for that, Anna. Trend-setting work there, not just in Serbia, but connecting with other countries in the region. Olia Buyar from Asia Pacific Union, you spoke to us earlier about practices around male AI and new technologies and getting feedback from viewers and listeners and readers. Could you speak a little bit more on that earlier? Could you talk to us about how can organizations like the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union, representing some 2/3 of the world populations, as you pointed out, what can organizations like yours and public service media do to increase media and information literacy to their end users? Can you share with us what can be done?
Yes, I just wanted to also, mention, I just react to a couple of things that have been said, particularly in terms of educating and using all this technology, wonderful technology that I love myself, to educate younger people. And I keep coming back to the fact that younger people are actually very well educated on how to use media, and time after time, research proves that they actually use it much better than middle-aged people. So sometimes we have to be careful about where we go, and with education, and certainly with the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union, we believe that we should use all our levers to educate on MIL. So, I mean, schools and libraries have been teaching information literacy for many years. And they're now ramping up to teach these new elements of awareness and MIL. But MIL needs to be a whole of society issue, supported by education in every setting possible. We believe very much in partnerships and collaboration. We do a lot of industry collaboration and partnerships and with civil society, with UNESCO. And, you know, I mean, we're just talking about it here, and I mean, I'd love to partner up with Twitter for here's an opportunity. But just in terms of getting some of these tools out through our journalists to the people that they're talking to, because a lot of in our region, it's not just about knowing what the tools are, it's about actually educating the journalists who don't always get that education. And it's not just we're not talking about the sort of the well-resourced people. We're talking about broadcasters who are in community broadcasting. We're talking about broadcasters who are in Nepal, in India, in Bangladesh, in areas that are unreachable by a lot of this technology. However, they use social media, and social media is a very important component of everything that they do and where they learn to use a lot of media. So I think collaboration with technology platforms as well as civil societies is actually the best way of getting through all of the barriers that people have against media and against, you know, fake news and fake media, and start to break that down, because it really only is when we start to work together on these things that we will break through the barriers, not just to the citizens, but actually to the audiences at large.
Thank you so much for that, Olia. From the EBU. We are 7 minutes over what is supposed to be an hour-long session. We had planned one more round of questions. If there is consensus, we will go rapidly through that final round. If our audience will bear with us, and if our speakers agree, we will go rapidly through that final round. Do we have consensus in the context of freedoms? So that we do not impose from our UNESCO standpoint. The discussion has been very, very rich. And thank you so much again, Olia, for that. We cannot forget rural and remote communities. You know, still we have close to 50% of the world population. Well, now I think the last statistics in January was saying that close to 59% of the population of the world are on the internet, so still 41% without access to the internet and digital technology. So how do we reach them? With media and information literacy by design, because certainly, though they do not have connection online, this information is still reaching them. And so we need to contemplate that, and partnerships with digital communication companies. One thing that UNESCO is trying to do, and we're working on now, and we're looking for more partnerships for that, and hope that some of those were connected connected as listeners and partners, but also as speakers on this panel, will help us to develop a radio-based media and information literacy massively open online course. So it's a MOOC in quotes, but it's radio-based. You know, of course, you know, to reach marginalized groups, we're not online, but then the content can also be used as podcast online. So we're looking for partnerships on that. So please contact us. We're going to wrap up with this final round. We're going to go with Yesus Law, and we're asking the speakers to speak really in a minute to 90 seconds in answering the final question. So Yesus, we're going to start with you, and if you could tell us a little bit, and we have said it, I think most of the speakers have spoken about this topic, about the role of, well, a little bit, some speakers have spoken about it, but the role of intuition in assessing AI-generated data and information. We talk a lot about critical thinking, and we need to complement that critical thinking with, I think someone mentioned emotional and social literacy, but what's the role of intuition in assessing AI-generated data and information, and how is MIL related to that?
Well, intuition plays a very important
briefly.
Well, intuition plays a very important role, because when we get all these media messages, we do not do analytical thinking. It's based on intuition. And intuition, it is also generated or decided by feelings. So when we see an advert, we decide first on using our intuition. And our intuition is a very subjective way to see things. So taking the example of Natalie, we need to take the principle of slow food. Whenever you get an ad, take a second to think about it. I know it is difficult because we get this overdose of media messages. So developing intuition is crucial for society. And intuition is not a simple thing. It is based on our values and on our information base. So we need to strengthen those two elements.
Thank you so much for that very important discussion, which we have more time to get into it. But I think Lisa Hinchliffe, I mean, all professors connected and executives, so please forgive us. We're in an informal discussion here. So Lisa Hinchliffe, could you build on that a little bit and talk about the potentials of AI and technology to support development of mindset? And I think that's a little bit some of what Yestas was speaking about. One social media platform is promoting what they're calling inoculation theory, and using inoculation theory to expose people to certain type of content, and so that when they come across it, they will understand and better able to resist it. Mindset is very important in how we become critical about information, because we have a predetermined mindset. So could you talk to us a little bit about how AI and technology could support the development of MIL mindset, that shift from our preconceived mindset to a media and information literacy mindset? Lisa.
I mean, I think in the way that they're going to support it is our recognition that we really are best served by not relying on it because we're seeing all of the problems of it. And I guess what I would just reinforce with maybe Jesus's comments is I would bring in the concept of as well heuristics. In everyday life, actually even in scholarly life, we have a set of we have our own heuristics that we use to make decisions. I think it's more than our gut. It's also our past experiences. It's the sense we develop over time of who we trust about which. And one thing that we haven't really had a chance, of course, to discuss here much today is the notion of reliance on experts. And that actually one of our one way technology could serve us well here is something that would hopefully be able to bring to the forefront who is an expert in a particular topic. Because the reality is, as an information consumer, I can only be an expert on so many things, and yet I'm asked to engage with all sorts of topics all day long. And so a lot of how I do that is by heuristically saying, I'm going to look to experts. I'm going to say, like, this is my doctor, this is the person who's in charge of this policy area. And I need to be critical about that. But that's really a way of sort of maximizing my ability to judge information by, if you will, outsourcing the judgment of the information to those that I have judged to be experts. So I think there might be some potential for AI to help us see who is an expert in a given field. But this is also still going to be highly problematic if we don't have that algorithmic literacy I talked about.
Thank you so much for that, Lisa, and thank you for being brief. I know there's a lot more you can share. Changing our preconceived mindset with a media and information literate mindset. Let's move rapidly then to Ibrahim Kush. Again, Ibrahim, final question. Could you please tell us in 60 seconds, what does the future look like for media and information literacy in the presence or with the presence of artificial intelligence? Ibrahim, I think you're muted. 1 minute, please.
Sorry.
What does the future look like for media and information literacy with the presence of AI?
Yeah, thank you. AI is, and the relevant technologies are developing very fast. As I gave you an example, not that only we are able to deal with large volumes of data and process it and deliver it in a very intelligent and precise way, and also predictive, when to deliver it and to who to deliver it. All these technologies are moving very fast, as also working with other disciplines like biotechnology. I briefly mentioned, that is, brain-to-brain transfer of knowledge, that influences a lot of fields. And so the experiments, human experiments, have concluded on this, that one person, 3 people can get together knowing only partial information about, say, a video game. But when they come together, three of them, they can do this task very easily. So when you have an information, partial information, distributed to everywhere, you can use this for meal education very effectively. So the development of technology is promising in one way, but also a little bit worrying. We have to be careful. So the worrying part is 2. One of them is about ownership. The other one is about the memory of these technologies. The ownership of technologies means that who holds this technology and the data, large volumes of data? Whoever is holding it is bringing their bias to it. How can we make sure that whoever the owners of these technologies are regulated or directed not to bring in their bias, but to make use of these technologies for the betterment of empowerment of the people as a whole? The memory is the data, especially for artificial intelligence. Where the data is collected, from where, which sources?
20 seconds, 20 seconds.
10, I need just 10 seconds. So the memory is the data. So however the data is collected and wherever it is collected and however it is being processed influences how these new technologies and artificial intelligence will produce output. And fortunately, we are not able to simulate intuition or what Lisa mentioned, what was the, Lisa, just remind me. The
Heuristics?
Yes, heuristics. We are not able to simulate advanced heuristics and intuition. So artificial intelligence, given the today's technology, will never be able to equal to the human. It will surpass human efforts, say, in chess or other games, bounded problems, but will never be human or more than human.
All right, thank you so much for that. I'm sorry about that interruption. You know, when your mom called, you don't want to ignore the call, you know? So my mommy was calling just now, so please forgive me. She called more than once. I thought it was urgent, and voila. So please forgive me. Yes, we're going to move rapidly along, and I think Yes's law can just build very rapidly on that issue of ownership and memory. I'm sorry to cut you short. We just want to wrap up in 5 minutes. So please let us run this lap very, very fast. We're coming to a close. So please forgive me. There's a lot that we want to say, but the time is short. So yes, can you just build a little bit on that for 60 seconds on the point that was made just now, and how libraries can complement this AI-driven type of assessment of data and information in terms of promoting meal competencies by design and delivery through libraries?
Well, it is difficult to give an answer in 60 seconds. But
yes, I know, but let's do the best.
We need to transform to enhance our media and information literacy trainings that we provide, so that we use the same technology that we're trying the same technology that our users are benefiting or are using. In other words, if artificial intelligence is a challenge, artificial intelligence is also the opportunity to provide training. Now, don't ask me how to do it, because in order to do it, you really need the resources and you need the training. And I think we as librarians need to be trained to really take advantage of this development. Everything is dialectic. You know, everything that gives you a good thing also gives you a bad side. It depends on you. And this is something that we have to train, you know.
No, thank you. Very well said in 60 seconds. Thank you so much, Yes. Anna Merkovic, final question from you. What suggestions can you give in terms of innovative ideas for meal by design moving forward from your digital communication perspective? Very briefly, 1 minute.
Very briefly, the ideas are creative, but if we want to be innovative, we have to think how to implement that creative ideas. And that's why the multi-stakeholder approach is necessary, and engagement of different development partners in order to reach different target groups and to make this idea possible to make an impact. And that's all.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We talk a lot about technology. Let us get a final perspective from Olia. We are back to focusing on citizens, the people. What can the rest of civil society actors do to help public service media meet their responsibilities through media and information literacy? What can civil society, coming back to the people, do with media and information literacy to help public service broadcasters to meet their responsibility? Olia, can you give us the ABU perspective?
Yes, I was just going to say that actually the future, as far as I'm concerned, it was looking very bright. It was only a couple of years ago that the media holus bolus around the world got labeled as fake news media. And that was actually a huge wake-up call for all of us to be able to go back to where we came from and say, why do our audiences not trust us? And I think that whole thing has generated a lot of work in terms of trust and what do we do about that? How do we reach our citizens, our audiences? And I think the way we do that is to collaborate and partner with platforms, with civil societies, and get to our audiences wherever they are, and via many platforms, and in a way that they trust. So it's not just about what we think that we should be doing, but it's about actually reaching people where they are and how they want to be reached, and using technology that they want. So I think we have to be much more clever, as Anna was saying, and do it in a very complex but simplified way to get to the people that we want to.
Thank you so much for that, Olia. I'll summarize by saying media and information literacy to build trust in media. Could you share some examples with us, Nathalie Laborde from European Broadcasting Union? Could you share some examples of what EBU is doing to engage with its viewers and listeners and readers in the context of transparency and objectivity, and using MIL in that respect?
So I will speak, Alton, quickly about what EBU Academy is doing. I think we really need what I call a skill revolution. We need to upskill and reskill our guys, our people, our journalists. So we speak a lot about, we do a lot of training on the computer-assisted reporting, for example, to help our journalists. We do things about programming, how to do face recognition, visual recognition. So as I mentioned, also social journalism, solution journalism. So thanks to digital, we can do e-learning, and it helps a lot. And even if people don't have a computer, they can follow this on their phone. So I think if you really want to have a first level of awareness and information, it works. But we can also really develop excellent skills in order to push all this very important discussion further, and use also the brand, for example, of UNESCO, which is a good brand.
Thank you so much for that, Nathalie Laborde from EBU. And let us close with our partner from Twitter, Ronan Castillo, Senior Policy Manager. Ronan, could you share a little bit of some examples of how social media companies are working with civil society and academic experts to improve the deployment of AI and promote media and information literacy?
Yeah, I'd probably go a step further and include probably governments and other public agencies and institutions there. I mentioned this morning that this morning I was participating in a discussion that was exclusively focused on COVID-19 and the vaccine rollout and people's acceptance of the vaccine. And what struck me there was that this time last year, we left our offices on a Wednesday, and by Friday, we were on a conference call with the Department of Health, along with all the other stakeholders that were addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. So technology was seen as a public health partner, or rather, it was demanded that technology be a public health partner and be part of the effort there and not siloed in industry. And I think applying the same approach here, if we're a public health partner in the actual health space, we should also be a public information partner with civil society groups, with academics, with broadcasting organizations, with newspapers, etc., and not view the two as siloed, because our platform is reliant on the presence of journalists and news organizations, for the benefit of our users. So it's in our interest to amplify that content and to strengthen the relationship.
Thank you so much. It has been a marathon. We have, created a melting pot of knowledge in the past 90 minutes. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your minds with us. It was real meeting of minds. Thanks to all our listeners, friends, partners who were patient with us. We have immortalized this knowledge. The video will be there. Many will be able to see it long into the future, way beyond the COVID-19 crisis. We have theorized, we have philosophized a little bit, and now we have to go forward and pragmatize, do what we know we have to do and must do, and ensure that it's practical and it's concrete and it touch and transform lives. Thank you so much. UNESCO is very grateful and wish we had time to get closing words from you. Normally we take 10 seconds vox pop from each of the speaker, but I think we are out of time to do it. So let's end on this note. Really, thank you so much. Looking forward to continuing the work. World Press Freedom Day continues into tomorrow and next week. Let's continue the dialogue there. Thank you so much and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.